Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 59. I am your host and Perrysburg resident, Kim Newlove. The Perrysburg Podcast is an informational podcast for prospective, new, and current Perrysburg, Ohio residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. Today, we are talking about Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. It's part of the Wood County Park District. That means it's not a city park, it's part of the Wood County Park District. The address for your GPS is 26940 Lime City Road, Perrysburg, Ohio. Now, to help me with this episode, I brought in an expert. Program Naturalist Craig Spicer from the Wood County Park District is my guest today. Craig will share the history and features of Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. If you like local history, Wood County parks, top roping, bouldering, and nature, you will love this episode. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Craig Spicer. Hi, Craig. Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast. How are you?
Hey, we're doing really well. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Perrysburg Township doesn't get enough attention on this podcast, so we're going to be talking about Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve today.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history of Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve?
Yeah, so Sawyer Quarry, we're just down here on Lime City Road between Route 20 and 795. A lot of people don't make it down this road. There is some quarry truck traffic and everything, but don't let that deter you by all means. We've got a nice little gem here that was donated to us, and we gained possession of it in 2014 from the Sawyer family. And after a few little improvements here and there, we opened it up in 2016. Since then, we've opened up. There is an interpretive center here, the program department of the Wood County Parks. Our offices are here. But well before then, this place got its start as a pretty important limestone quarry. In 1883, actually, Charles Henry Sawyer was one of the pioneer quarrymen. He purchased 110 acres at Lime City Road and Route 20. And on this site right here, limestone was quarried and used in Toledo's glass production. So there was a number of laborers that were employed here. They would either blast or hammer the limestone off of the walls, obviously digging down to it first. But then once the limestone was at the surface, it was either placed in a crusher to make more uniform pieces for transport from mule-drawn wagons over to the railroad, which is just right over here that borders the property. And then after those blocks were loaded onto the railroad, they would be sent up to Toledo for building supply manufacturers or glass manufacturers, that sort of stuff. Or some of that limestone was heated in a kiln to produce limestone ash for cement and even agricultural uses. In 1891, they actually officially created the Lime City Company, which is actually why the road that we're on is named Lime City. It's for this property, the Lime City Company, which obviously, like I already said, did a lot of quarrying and that sort of thing. Now, that actually continued until about the Great Depression era. It's not exactly known why active quarrying here ceased, but it could have been a mix of the Great Depression, obviously, Charles Henry Sawyer's passing in 1932, or the quarry began to fill with water. And again, it's not known exactly when or why water started to fill the quarry. But after that, the Sawyer family started to make this their little retreat, their rendezvous. The mules that used to be used for the work, well, were now excellent equestrian pets. They would ride them around the property and that sort of thing. Family members would come here generation after generation for swimming and lunch picnics. The impact of the Sawyer family is certainly felt around the region. Even Lake Sawyer at Camp Miaconda is named after one of the sons down the line. We have Eagle Scouts. There's World War I soldiers. The list goes on and on. But eventually, after all the life that was lived here, all the fond memories of the Sawyer family, all those things taking place here. Their enjoyment of the outdoors, their passion for nature that was instilled here at Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. They eventually did donate this property to us after 131 years of family legacy and 5 generations. Like I said, donated in 2014, and we opened up the park to hope to continue to instill that passion into other generations of families. We opened it up in 2016.
Wow, you know how to open an interview with a bang, sir. Wow, that was great.
Hey, it's not me. There's a lot of awesome history here. The passion for the outdoors, it runs deep in this property, and you can really get a sense of that if you were to visit.
Yes, I know that there is a bench. I know this is really minor, but there is a bench dedicated to the Sawyer family, and it's at
Yep,
the
yep,
entrance to the, I think they call it the Wildflower Trail. It's the main crushed
sure,
gravel trail. And when I
yeah,
saw it, I thought, oh, there's got to be a story behind that. This podcast has helped me slow down and learn more about why things are the way they are here in my own town. I know you're out there in the township, but still, it's all 43551. It's all
yeah,
Perrysburg. So now I know the rest of the story. Thank you.
yeah. And obviously, if you want to know even more than that, I mean, going even back to how the rocks formed here during, the glaciation period, and even before that, the interpretive center, which is actually more towards the entrance of the park. You'll see kind of a brownish tan building there. That was actually a couple of cool things about the interpretive center. I know I'm cart before the muling you right now.
Ha ha. I was going to get to that feature. That's okay. Let's start with the interpretive center. I have
Yeah.
actually never been in there, and I've been holding off on going into it until you tell me
Oh,
like the biggest things that I should be seeing there. It sounds like
okay,
you're
cool.
already talking about two. Let's hear about those two, Craig.
All right. So the interpretive center, I will say right off the bat, it's a little smaller. It's humble. It's kind of one big room that's cut into two pieces. One side, there is kind of a bird viewing room, and you can see views into the quarry. Really cool space. There's also a display case there of artifacts that we found from the quarry itself. Now, when I say artifacts, I mean a lot of people think like, ooh, like ancient clay pots and stuff. Like, no, no, no. These artifacts are things that we've pulled out, and some of them harken back to when the quarry was in its mining operation. So some things from miners have been found, and we've brought them in there. And there's some glass bottles that are really old and stuff that we know got a little bit of help in production from lime taken from this quarry, which is pretty cool. Anyway, the larger part of the room has a lot of interpretive displays that are telling you all about kind of what I was hinting at before, formation of the rock itself, and putting ourself into kind of a sense of place in our time scale, and just what we're able to enjoy, how long it has taken in geologic history to produce these things that we're now able to enjoy and explore and that sort of stuff. There's also a much longer Sawyer family history narrative there that was actually written by Anne Sawyer, who was the donating member of the Sawyer family. Her daughter was the one that helped to write that narrative, and it's awesome. It's almost completely untouched, just a little bit of formatting here and there, but it's all from her words. So all the stories in it, all the facts in it are absolutely true as it pertains to this property. And then there's an interpretive panel on what quarrying would have looked like here. And what's super cool is we actually have a photo of this quarry while it was in the middle of quarrying. So there's different buildings, there's the crusher, there's the kiln, there's steam lines going everywhere that powered the drills for them to bore the holes, to stick in the dynamite, to blast the rock out. It's super cool. And also, there is a small climbing wall in there. I should say bouldering wall. And that might lead us into another point of what you're able to actually do here at Sawyer.
Yeah,
I
carry
can just
on.
keep on a roll, or you can cue me, whichever you want.
No, that's great. We can talk about the bouldering. I know that when you look at the map, when you first arrive at the park, there's the info stand there. And when you
Yep.
look at it, it says rappelling cliff and bouldering cliff. And when you first look from the parking lot, you're like, where is this? So where is it, Craig?
I was kind of hinting at the fact that the quarry was filled with water in the past, but again, we're not sure when. or why exactly, but roughly in like the 80s, 90s, the quarry started to drain. And one of the Sawyers who was living here at the time, he actually did a contract with the quarry that's next door to our east to pump water into the quarry to keep it up. Obviously, that's not happening anymore, and the quarry is almost completely dry. Now, that leads us to some cool opportunities for us, though, to do some rock climbing. Obviously, we don't have many mountains and stuff in Northwest Ohio. So when we want to climb rocks, it's because somebody's already dug out and exposed that bedrock to us, which we have here. So we have climbing and rappelling cliffs that are on the north and south side of the quarry that are about 30-ish feet high. And if you have your own climbing and rappelling equipment, all you need to do is fill out a self-registration form at our kiosk, kind of a little waiver thing. It also tells us when you started and that sort of thing, so that we can track numbers and see usage and that sort of stuff. You submit that, and then you can build your anchors, which is a term that climbing and rappelling people will know. But you can build your anchors on the installed anchor bolts that we have at the top of the cliffs of both the north and south rappelling cliffs. There's also a couple that are nearer to the edge of the cliff for good top roping opportunities. And there's one set at the face of the top of the cliff, again, for top roping opportunities. Now, when I say top roping, that's a particular practice of climbing, just for the non-climbers out there. Anyway, we also have, if you go even further into the quarry, so you go down the steps, down, 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 have to kind of do a little bit of a scramble to get to the deepest part of the quarry. From there, we have bouldering walls on the east and west side of that innermost quarry bowl. Now, what is bouldering? It's just low-level rock climbing. You're not using any harnesses or ropes or anything to keep you up, but we do suggest that you were to use something like a crash pad, which, again, is just think of a specialized, pretty thick, semi-stiff camp mattress, like a fold-out thing.
I always think of them as gymnastics mattresses or gymnastics pads or something like that. I don't know the technical term for it, but yeah, the gymnastic mats.
Me neither, clearly. That makes two of us. And all that's really doing is making the area below you uniform, so you have somewhere to fall with confidence if you were to slip from your bouldering climbing problem that you're trying to face.
Well done. I just want to ask about signage, because for anybody who's never been there before, it's easy enough to park and then walk over to where you enter the quarry trail and then find the stairs. I mean, there's only one set of stairs. You go down, you find the quarry, but then if you want to do the rappelling or the boulder, not rappelling, but the top roping or the bouldering, is there a spot marked where people typically do that?
Yeah, so on our map, we have suggested areas for you to do that. You'll know them because there's anchor bolts installed there. Also on our map, you can see that innermost bowl. You can see kind of colored shaded areas on that east and west of that innermost bowl. There are also signs, though, that kind of point you like an arrow this way and an arrow this way that say bouldering. And it's in between those two arrows that we suggest that you boulder.
Thank you for mentioning that. Anybody that's never been there before, there's no attendant, so to speak,
No.
So when it's self-serve, it's always best to, just ask people about things when you have the chance. You're the expert, so thanks for answering those questions.
You're welcome. When you step into the quarry down those metal steps, when you get into the quarry, it is kind of a self-exploration area. There are some paths that have been just kind of made by people who were doing that self-exploration, and everybody takes the easiest path. So where there's kind of those openings, the paths kind of generated themselves inside of the quarry. With that said, it is one of our park rules and good park visiting etiquette to stay on paths every chance that you can. And we do have more trails around Sawyer Quarry than just inside of the quarry itself. There is a roughly half-mile loop that is south. That's called that Wildflower Trail. And that's crushed limestone, ADA spec'd, traversable for any park visitor. And then we have a couple other small loops. So there's one that's called the Wet Woods Trail. It actually legs off of that wildflower walk, kind of heads, depending on which way you're coming from, it kind of heads more towards the west side of the park. And that Wet Woods Trail, it does get to one of our lowest points, not of the quarry, obviously, but one of our lowest points above the quarry. So a lot of our water is pooling there. It makes for really good habitat for frogs and toads, and of course insects too. If you're coming and you're visiting us during the warm season, the Great Black Swamp, it's still alive. And we at the Wood County Parks are in the business of conservation. So, yeah, there's some mosquitoes here. There's a couple of ticks here and there. Just wear your bug spray, wear your long pants. Even if you've got one of those cool ghillie suit net things, you can bring that too. Lots of mushrooms and spring wildflowers can be found on that Wet Woods Trail as well. And then the other trailer we have is called the Quarry Rim, it's called the Quarry Rim Trail. And both it and that Wet Woods Trail are designated as primitive. So pretty much it's cleared dirt. There could be rocks in there. There could be a log here and there. Sometimes we added some mulch if it's just like really ridiculously wet and we don't want it to be. That Quarry Rim Trail, it goes north around the quarry. It gets you into some pretty cool habitats as well. And that one's also about a half a mile. So all in all, if you were to do all the trails here in a big loop, you could be at about like a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half loop. You can do that as many times as you want, obviously, to get the distance that you're after.
Excellent. Well explained. I like that you went over all three trails. And I would like to put in my 2 cents about the quarry, if you don't mind. I have
Give them
seen, okay, I've seen some wildlife down there. I have seen wild turkeys. Have you seen the turkeys, Craig?
inside the quarry.
Yeah. I think I might actually have a picture of one.
I've never seen them in the quarry. That's pretty cool.
Okay, I've seen them in the woods too. There's been some deer, some squirrels, things of that nature. Deer, squirrels, turkeys. I think that's about all I've seen. Any other wildlife that you think people might see? What have you seen?
So this is one of our favorite parks to do owl walks in. We've got a pretty decent population of screech owls, which if you're not familiar with what those are, if you ever see a picture of like, it almost looks like a little baby owl. It's maybe like 8 to 10 inches tall. It looks so adorable and small, but it's a full adult owl. Eastern screech owls are most common, and they don't really they don't really do that. Instead, they have like a long trill. It kind of sounds like this. And it just kind of stays there for a while. Or they have this whinny, which is kind of reminiscent of like our mules or horses that used to be working here. It kind of sounds like kind of sounds like that. So anyway, I'm not just a historian. I'm a naturalist too. So I have a little practice with owl calls.
I thought that was awesome. Thank you. Next time I go, I will listen for both of those sounds. Seriously,
Yeah.
that's something that I haven't ever tuned into, so to speak. I think I'm always too busy kind of looking for the turkeys and the deer because I know those
Hey,
are
that's okay.
my known animals.
They are awesome too.
Great. I know we got a little bit off topic, but you're doing a great job covering all of these features I asked about. You talked about the interpretive center. You talked about the trails. You talked about wildlife, which wasn't even really officially on my list, but that's cool. Checking a box
Yeah, they're part of it.
Yeah, we're checking a box that wasn't even there. You talked about the quarry, the stairs to it. Just a little note about that for anybody who uses a mobility device. There's no way to get down there. There's no elevator if you happen to be a chair user. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, there is not, unfortunately.
That's all right. But can somebody see the folks in the quarry from the interpretive center?
Yes, or they could go to the top of the South Quarry Cliff. That's generally accessible, although you are going kind of in more of a natural substrate like grass and dirt and that sort of thing. But that would give you a really excellent view from the top. Just watch your step. There's no barrier, there's no fence or anything like that. So just be careful.
Well said. Yes. And be careful if you're on foot too, because I think there's some tree roots there. I think, Craig, you talked a little bit about adding mulch to some uneven spots. Just be advised, it's nature. You might encounter a tree root.
That is very true.
All right. Also on my list, I've got to ask about something that may or may not be there. I have never seen it before, but it's on your sign. So I have to ask, what's this about a pollinator garden?
That is actually, it's in progress. It's going to be around the interpretive center, actually, but it's going to be filled with some native flowering plants that are good for our native wild pollinators.
Thank you for telling me about that. I will watch for your flowers to bloom maybe next spring.
Yeah, hopefully. And on that note, actually, this park is really great for plants known as spring ephemerals or spring wildflowers, especially the woodland kind. So if you come around here, I mean, late April through May into June, you're going to see quite the diversity of native wildflowers. We've got great white trillium here. We've got toadshade trillium here. We've got bloodroot, cut leaf toothwort. We got so much stuff here. If you're a naturalist kind of person, come out here with your wildflower identification book, or even your smartphone with an app like Seek or iNaturalist, and you're going to have a heyday.
Well said. Now, are these people that look for the flowers the same people that are the bird watchers, or are they totally different people?
There could be some overlap there. I'm not going to be the one to shun one citizen scientist away from a different science topic. You can add as many as you like. Come on out. We do have some migrating birds that come through here as well. So it's a great park for so many things.
Well, I'm talking to the right guy. As a naturalist, I'm sure you know about the flowers, the animals, the trails, all the things. So, is there anything that I missed when it comes to nature? Perhaps your office, the naturalist's office?
Our office building is here. The programming staff's office is here. It is inside of the almost untouched home of Charles and Anne Sawyer that was built in 1985. We've pretty much just taken over the different bedrooms. I'm speaking to you from one. Oh no, I'm not. I'm in the quarry. Sorry, forgot to mention.
He's got a background that looks like the quarry. It really does. All right, sorry, go on.
Anyway, it's been a great addition for us, obviously. And if you'd like to meet with us here, you can schedule an appointment with us, and we'll let you in by appointment only. You can find our number and our email at our website at wcparks.org.
Thank you very much. Hey, Craig, where are the bathrooms?
Yeah, so we used to have a porta potty here for like a really long time when we were building or refurbishing the interpretive center, which I should be calling the Anne Interpretive Center because that is the matriarch of the family that donated it to us. But anyway, so at the Anne Interpretive Center, they're inside of there. There's also a water bottle filling station there. So for all of you reusable bottle users, which should be all of you, you can refill your water bottle there as well.
Good to know. Thank you. Yes, I am familiar with that porta potty. Unfortunately, I have kids. I used to bring them there. And, when you got to go, you got to go.
You got to use something. Thank you for not doing it on our spring ephemerals. I'll say that.
Craig, as we start to wrap this up, is there anything else you'd like to share? The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Hey, for all you people, if you are going to visit Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve, I would just say you can do almost anything here. There's something for the recreational enthusiast. There's something for the nature enthusiast. There is something for the dog walker, the plant looker, the bird watcher. There's really everything here. Although the park may be a little small, you can certainly lose track of time by visiting here at Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. And that goes for many of our parks. Here at Wood County Park District, we actually have 20 different parks and nature preserves that you can visit, and an absolute plethora of programs and volunteer opportunities. We've got bike programs. We've got scarecrow contests. We've got Heritage Farm Fest out at Carter Historic Farm. Even coming up after that, we've got Wild Lights Weekend, which is in January of 2025. We've got archery and geocaching. We've got night hikes, nature walks. all sorts of stuff for all ages. So if you want to find out more about any of those things, head to our website, wcparks.org. And I look forward to seeing you out in nature.
Thank you so much, Craig, for being here on the Perrysburg Podcast. Take care.
You're welcome. You too. Bye.
Thanks again to Craig Spicer from the Wood County Park District for being my guest today on episode 59 of the Perrysburg Podcast. He did a great job with the history and the features. After this interview, I went out and I checked out the Ann B. Sawyer Interpretive Center. It is awesome. I've been going to Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve for, I would say, at least 7 years. But I have never been into the Interpretive Center until last month, August of 2024. As I record this, it is September 5th, 2024. So I just went for the first time last month. So I got to see the bathrooms, the water bottle filling station, the artifacts that Craig mentioned. I saw a pair of eyeglasses, some old bottles, lots of cool things in a glass display case. I saw the big picture window that overlooks the quarry. I saw the climbing wall, the historical pictures with stories, and more. There's a lot in there. Now, if you've never been to the Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve, or like me, you've been there, but you just haven't been inside the Interpretive Center, make sure you check out the Interpretive Center. It is worth your time. And by the way, if you use a wheelchair or you need to enter the building with a stroller, you will find a very nice ramp leading up to the door. As a recap, during our interview, Craig also mentioned the trails, the quarry, the climbing areas, the bouldering and the top roping, the pollinator garden that's in progress, and the naturalist's office. About the only thing that I could think of that he didn't really talk at length about was the wooden information stand that's across from the largest of the 3 parking lots. It's across the driveway from the grassy area with the picnic tables as you enter. You can't miss it. Now, at that information stand, you will find a map of the park, the registration forms for climbers, Wood County Park District program information, and more. If you stop by the park, check out the information stand. It's actually a great place to start. There's lots of good stuff there. Now, as we start to wrap up this episode, I would like to say that I personally learned a lot from Craig about a place that I already enjoy visiting. I go to Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve probably at least once a month. This podcast, I love this podcast because it really helps me slow down and learn more about some of my favorite places here in Perrysburg. I'm a fan of Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. If you are a prospective, new, or current Perrysburg, Ohio resident or a visitor, check out Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve and the Interpretive Center soon. It's a great place. Thank you for listening to episode 59 of the Perrysburg Podcast. Please visit perrysburgpodcast.com to read the show notes. In the show notes, you will find links to the Wood County Park District, the YouTube channel for this podcast, other episodes about parks in Perrysburg on this podcast, my email address, and more. If you would like to be notified by email each time a new episode of this podcast, the Perrysburg Podcast, comes out, go ahead and sign up for the newsletter on perrysburgpodcast.com, and I will email you every week. You can also subscribe to or follow the Perrysburg Podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Go ahead and share this episode with anyone you think might enjoy it or maybe hasn't heard of Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve and might like to go there. I appreciate you sharing this episode. Thank you for listening today, and I will talk to you next week.